The narcissist's karma is already happening. Look around you right now. Someone in your life might be playing a game where the fucking rules were rigged before you even sat down at the table. They smile. They project confidence. They walk into a room like they own the oxygen. And somehow you walk away questioning your memory, your sanity, and your worth. You have watched them break rules without consequences. You have watched them lie with surgical precision. You have watched them destroy people, rewrite what happened, and walk away clean while everybody else is left sweeping up the fucking wreckage. And eventually you ask the question nearly every survivor asks, when do they pay? When does the scale balance? When does karma finally walk through the door and punch them square in the fucking face? Here is what might surprise you. You are looking for the wrong sign. You are waiting for the public collapse, the dramatic exposure, the court case, the failed relationship, the humiliation, the tearful apology where everybody finally sees exactly what you saw. But while you are waiting for the Hollywood ending, you might be missing something much darker. Their karma is not necessarily coming. It may already be here. And I am not talking about crystals, cosmic energy, or the universe keeping a little fucking spreadsheet of everybody who has wronged you. I am talking about behavioral mechanics, cause and effect, the psychological cost of spending your entire life defending something that was never real in the first place. Stay with me, because I want to show you the traps narcissistic behavior creates from the inside. Why control can actually be panic wearing a suit. Why avoiding shame does not remove it. Why every bridge they burn eventually makes their world smaller. Why age starts stripping leverage from tactics that once worked brilliantly. And why one of the most devastating things you can eventually give a narcissistic person is not revenge. It is fucking indifference. Because once you understand the machinery, you stop waiting for karma to arrive. You realize the machine has been grinding away the entire time. Stop waiting for the Hollywood ending. When people talk about karma, they usually imagine some invisible referee. Eventually the dirty player gets caught. Eventually everybody sees through them. Eventually life delivers the consequences. But waiting for that can keep you trapped. You keep checking their social media. You watch the new relationship. You wonder whether the mask has slipped yet. You wait for their friends to realize. You wait for the new supply to experience what you experienced. You wait for someone to finally say, fuck, you were right. And without realizing it, your recovery is still running on their timeline. So change the lens. Every behavior has a cost. Every lie creates another lie that has to be remembered. Every manipulated relationship creates another person who eventually starts noticing inconsistencies. Every time shame is pushed outward instead of processed inward, the psychological system becomes more dependent on doing it again. That is the mechanic. What people call karma can simply be the accumulated debt of pathological self-deception. The narcissist does not necessarily suffer because the universe punishes them. They suffer because the way they protect themselves makes peace almost impossible. The mask is not only protection. Eventually the mask becomes the fucking prison. The false self is expensive to maintain. At the center of narcissistic behavior is usually something deeply defended. Shame, inadequacy, fear of being ordinary, fear of being exposed, fear of being rejected. Instead of integrating those parts like a psychologically healthy person eventually learns to do, they construct something else. The false self, the magnificent version, the superior version, the misunderstood version, the flawless version, the victim version, the version that is always right. But here's the problem. Anything artificial requires maintenance. You cannot build your identity on perception and then relax. You have to manage perception constantly. You have to control the story. You have to monitor how people see you. You have to remember what you told one person and make sure it matches what you told another. You have to watch faces, tone, messages, reactions. You have to scan every room for disrespect, rejection, or exposure. Think about the fucking workload. 24 hours a day trying to make sure reality never gets close enough to threaten the character you built to protect yourself from reality. That is not confidence. That is hypervigilance with good fucking posture. Every person becomes one of two things: a source of validation or a potential threat. And when you live like that long enough, there is no fucking rest. Control is often panic wearing armor. This is one of the biggest misunderstandings about narcissistic behavior. People look at the control and think power. I look at control and often see fear. Because if your internal sense of worth depends almost completely on what is happening outside you, then the outside world becomes fucking terrifying. Someone disagrees with you, threat. Someone establishes a boundary, threat. Someone stops admiring you, threat. Someone remembers events differently, threat. Someone succeeds without you, threat. Someone sees behind the mask, massive fucking threat. So control becomes emotional life support. Control the conversation, control the partner, control the children, control the workplace, control the story, control what everybody thinks, control who speaks to whom, control what happened yesterday, control what people are allowed to say happened yesterday, because the alternative is uncertainty, and uncertainty risks shame. That is why what looks like dominance can actually be a panic response. They are not necessarily controlling everybody because they feel powerful. They may be controlling everybody because without control, the internal structure starts fucking shaking. Relationships become transactions. Healthy relationships build emotional equity. Trust accumulates. You show up, they show up, you fuck up, you apologize, they fuck up, they repair. There is reciprocity, there is goodwill. There is enough emotional capital sitting in the bank that when things become difficult, the relationship can survive a withdrawal. Narcissistic relationships operate differently. The currency becomes leverage. What do you need? What do you fear? What makes you stay? What makes you jealous? What makes you insecure? What makes you feel guilty? What makes you desperate to prove yourself? In the beginning, this can look fucking incredible. Mirroring, charm, attention, love bombing, intensity, you feel seen. Finally, somebody gets you. Then slowly the structure changes. A little devaluation, a little withdrawal, a joke that cuts slightly too deep. A boundary gets tested, something happens that makes you uncomfortable, you raise it, and somehow you are the fucking problem for raising it. Then the middle stage starts. Confusion, anxiety, hypervigilance. You start scanning the emotional weather before you speak. Then later comes direct exploitation, gaslighting on hostility, blame, shifting, control. Eventually the relationship reaches the endgame. Bridge burning, smear campaigns, character assassination, and another person disappears from their world. Notice what happens over time. The quality of the people around them starts degrading. Healthy people eventually notice. Emotionally stable people get tired of the fucking game. People with boundaries stop playing. So who remains? People who can still be manipulated. People who want something. People who are equally chaotic. People waiting for their own opportunity. The narcissist thinks they are building a kingdom. Sometimes they're actually building a fucking cage. The social circle shrinks. Relationships based on leverage have a structural weakness. They require somebody to stay weaker. If I need you confused to feel secure, your growth threatens me. If I need you dependent, your independence threatens me. If I need you beneath me, your confidence threatens me. If I need you emotionally destabilized, your healing threatens me. So healthy development inside the other person becomes dangerous. That is why you often see boundary testing increase when the partner begins getting stronger. You go to therapy, problem. You reconnect with friends, problem. You stop defending yourself, problem. You say no, huge fucking problem. Because leverage only works while the imbalance remains. Eventually people wake up, they leave, colleagues withdraw, friends stop calling, children get older and begin seeing things differently, partners stop absorbing the blame, and the narcissistic person's world becomes smaller. Not necessarily overnight, that is the important part. People wait for the giant collapse. Most of the time it looks more like corrosion. One relationship, then another, then another. A bridge burns here, a reputation cracks there, somebody quietly stops answering, another person no longer trusts them, the world slowly contracts. The tactics age too. There's another mechanic nobody outruns. Time. When someone is younger, charismatic, physically attractive, energetic or professionally powerful, manipulation can carry more leverage. Charm gets people through doors. Confidence gets mistaken for competence. Appearance attracts new supply. Authority silences questions. Energy allows somebody to keep 10 fucking narratives running at once, but time changes the equation. Energy drops. Cognitive speed changes. Appearance changes. Professional status can change. And decades of psychological defense carry a fucking cost. The lies can become sloppier. The rage becomes harder to hide. Contempt leaks out. Gaslighting becomes obvious instead of subtle. The charming manipulation that once sounded clever starts sounding repetitive. At the same time, something else is happening. Everyone around them is aging too. People become wiser. They have been through divorces, toxic workplaces, manipulative friendships. They have learned boundaries. They have learned pattern recognition. The tactic that destroyed somebody at 25 might get laughed at when they are 45. That changes the leverage, and when external leverage starts fading, the false self becomes more expensive to maintain. Age does not create the collapse, it exposes the structure. The narcissistic false self often depends heavily on external assets, looks, status, authority, sexual attention, professional power, charm, physical energy. When those assets are strong, they can cover a lot of dysfunction. People tolerate shit they should not tolerate because the person seems impressive, but those things are temporary. Nobody stays 30 forever. Nobody stays physically dominant forever. Nobody remains professionally untouchable forever. Nobody has endless energy. Eventually, the internal structure matters more, and that is where the difference becomes obvious. Healthy people accumulate substance, wisdom, self-awareness, perspective, genuine friendships, trust, humility, emotional regulation. The narcissistic person may spend those same decades accumulating defenses, resentment, broken relationships, narratives, enemies, shame, suspicion. That is the real compounding interest. You cannot lie forever without damaging your own reality. Every time a healthy person fucks up, there is an opportunity for correction. You feel guilt, you reflect, you apologize, you adjust. That feedback loop fucking matters, and it keeps reality calibrated. But if shame is intolerable, the correction mechanism gets bypassed. Yep, I did not do anything wrong. You made me do it. You misunderstood. You are too sensitive. That never happened. You are remembering it incorrectly. Actually, you are the abusive one. Short-term result, shame reduced, false self-protected. Long-term result, reality becomes increasingly distorted. Because you cannot spend decades rewriting reality for everybody else without eventually corrupting your own relationship with it. Kindness starts looking like weakness. Boundaries look like attacks. Neutrality looks like rejection. Disagreement looks like disrespect. Independence looks like betrayal. And suddenly they are fighting battles nobody else even knows are happening. That is a psychological debt. Chronic threat perception has a cost. If every challenge to your ego feels like an attack, your nervous system does not care that there is no fucking tiger in the room. It responds, fight, flight, threat, stress, again and again and again. Imagine living with that internally, constantly scanning for disrespect, constantly watching who is talking to whom, constantly wondering who knows what, constantly defending the image, constantly reading tiny facial expressions for evidence that somebody has stopped admiring you. That is exhausting. The body pays for chronic hypervigilance, the brain pays, emotional regulation suffers, attention narrows, everything gets interpreted through threat. So when you look at somebody and think, why do they always need to control everything? Sometimes the answer is simple, because internally they feel completely fucking out of control. The systems they build, eventually become fragile. A narcissistic person can build systems that initially look extremely successful: workplaces, families, friend groups, relationships, social networks. But if those systems are based on fear, leverage, and transaction instead of trust, they carry a hidden fault line. People stay while staying is useful. People comply while the leverage works. People flatter while there is something to gain. But when real crisis arrives, what happens? Health problem? Financial problem? Professional collapse? Loss of status? Legal issue? Age? Illness? Suddenly charm is not enough. No! And if you spent 20 years treating everybody like disposable fucking tools, do not be shocked when nobody wants to carry you when you finally become heavy. Healthy people build safety nets out of trust. Manipulative people often build them out of leverage. Leverage disappears the moment the power imbalance disappears. That is when the structure starts falling apart. Their real downfall is not exposure. This is the part survivors often struggle with. You want them exposed, of course you fucking do. You want everybody who believed the smear campaign to see the truth. You want the new partner to understand. You want the family to finally connect the dots. You want the workplace to realize. You want the mask ripped off publicly. But direct exposure does not always produce the outcome you imagine. Sometimes conflict actually feeds the machinery. Because anger still communicates. You matter. I am watching. You can still move me. You are important enough for me to fight. Even hatred can become a form of supply when somebody needs to feel central. So what is worse? Indifference, no reaction, no defense, no chasing, no monitoring, no fucking audience. Because if their entire identity depends on being reflected through other people, indifference is starvation. Observe, do not absorb. This is where recovery changes everything. Eventually you stop seeing the behavior as mysterious. You see the script, there is the projection, there is the blame shift, there is the triangulation, there is the guilt, there is the victim theater, there is the sudden rage because a boundary exposed something. And instead of absorbing it emotionally, you observe it. That changes the entire fucking system. The narcissistic person says something designed to provoke you, and instead of spending 3 days defending yourself, you think, interesting, there is the mechanic. That is freedom, not revenge, not winning, not proving anything. Just no longer being available as a component inside someone else's dysfunctional machine. Their prison is themselves. This is what people misunderstand when they think narcissists always win. Winning what? A relationship you cannot trust? Admiration you constantly have to maintain? Friends you suspect are plotting against you? Partners you need to control because genuine intimacy feels unsafe? A life spent remembering fucking lies? A nervous system permanently scanning for humiliation? What exactly did they win? The public image might look impressive, but internally, imagine never being able to relax into another human being, never being able to say, I fucked up, never being able to admit, I am scared, never knowing whether somebody loves you or simply loves the version you created to manipulate them. That is the prison. And the prison follows them everywhere. New partner, same prisoner. New city, same prisoner. New workplace, same prisoner. New supply, same fucking prisoner. You cannot outrun yourself. The mask slowly becomes harder to hold. The mask usually does not collapse in one glorious cinematic moment. That is another fantasy survivors need to let go of. It can degrade slowly. Bitterness increases, rage appears more frequently, the charm becomes less convincing, the stories become repetitive, the social circle becomes more dysfunctional, new relationships burn faster. The same accusations appear against different people, the same conflicts repeat, the mask starts slipping because maintaining it requires enormous fucking energy. Eventually what people see is not the invincible mastermind. They see someone exhausted from trying to control a world that increasingly refuses to cooperate. Their karma is cause and effect. This is the point. Karma does not need magic. If you continually betray trust, people stop trusting you. If you continually manipulate people, healthy people leave. If you cannot tolerate accountability, you cannot grow. If you cannot process shame, you repeat the behavior that creates more shame. If you treat relationships as transactions, people eventually treat you transactionally. And if you burn every bridge, eventually you run out of fucking bridges. If your identity depends on external validation, you become permanently dependent on a resource you cannot fully control. That is cause and effect. That is behavioral karma. Indifference is the endgame. The final defeat is not you screaming the truth in their face. It is not revenge. It is not exposing them to everyone. It is not proving you were right. It is the day you genuinely stop fucking caring whether they understand. Their message arrives, nothing. They post something designed to make you jealous, nothing. Someone tells you about their new partner, nothing. You hear they are talking shit about you, nothing. Not because you are numb, because they no longer own emotional real estate inside your nervous system, and that is the endgame. You moved. They did not stop monitoring their karma. This is what I want you to take away. Stop waiting for their downfall. Stop checking whether the new relationship has collapsed. Stop asking whether karma has arrived. Stop waiting for everybody to admit you were right. Every second you spend monitoring their life is another second they are still extracting something from yours. Your attention, your energy, your fucking peace. Let the mechanics finish the job. Their patterns will create their consequences. You do not need to engineer them. You do not need to accelerate them. You do not even need to witness them. Walk away, observe, do not absorb. Let cause and effect do what it has always done.
Or I should smooth out the idol.
Because the trap was never something you needed to build for them. They built it themselves. Every lie was another bar. Every betrayal was another lock. Every destroyed relationship made the cell smaller. Every refusal to face themselves made escape less likely. And one day when the audience is gone, the relationships are exhausted, the leverage is faded, and everybody else has moved forward, there is one person left sitting inside that fucking room. Them. With themselves. The one person they spent an entire lifetime trying to escape. That is not Hollywood karma. It is colder than that. It is mechanical. And the machinery has been running the whole fucking time. This has been the mechanics of toxic relationships. Until next time, look after yourself.